Good afternoon and welcome to Third Thursday, a virtual training event sponsored by the National Disaster Preparedness Training Center. I'm Karen Awana, filling in for Lydia Morikawa. But before we begin, please mute your microphones. Our meetings are being recorded and will be uploaded to our NDPTC YouTube channel. I'll be entering that in the chat shortly. It will be monitored. Our presentation will be monitored by our team and also our chat, and the answers will be addressed at the end. Today, we'll be introducing the Resilience Hub planning on the island of Oahu here in Hawaii. Introducing our panel and filling in for Dr. Carl Kim is Kung Tran. Kung?
Thanks, Karen, and aloha, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining today for this amazing Third Thursday webinar on Resilience Hub planning on Oahu. I'm very excited about this topic because I've gotten the pleasure of working with such incredible people as part of my master's thesis on resilience hubs. We have 7 presenters today, 5 of which are students and resilience corps leaders from Kupi'olani Community College. I'll go ahead and introduce the first 2 presenters, and I'll link the students' bios in the chat. The first presenter is Dr. Miku Lenentine. She works as an environmental social scientist, focusing on small group behavior and attitudes associated with the natural world. Her current position as the program coordinator at CERENE Center for Resilient Neighborhoods focuses on exploring community perspectives on resilience as it relates to disaster preparedness and addressing the grand challenges of climate change. The second presenter is Sarah Harris. Sarah Harris works in the Office of Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resiliency as a Hazard Mitigation and Long-Term Disaster Recovery Program Manager. She works closely with Dr. Miku Lenentine and KCC's Center for Resilient Neighborhoods on the Action 15 Resilience Hub project. She's passionate about helping communities become more resilient through action, creative problem solving, and partnerships. Sarah and Miku, go right ahead. Thank you.
We like to always keep you all on your toes. So actually, Sarah's the first speaker. So I'm going to screen share and hand it over to Sarah. You guys seeing the correct screen?
Yep.
Great.
Yes, thank you, Miku. And thank you all again for being here today. So thank you for the wonderful introduction, Kung. So we are here today to talk about Resilience Hub planning on the island of Oahu. So just a little bit about the project itself. It is a collaborative effort between the city and county of Honolulu, along with Kapi'olani Community College, Miku, and as well as the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about the City and County of Honolulu's Office of Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resiliency. We're kind of a young office, and we're a little bit special in the sense that we were actually voted into the city's charter in 2016. So this was kind of a resounding call from our community that we need more climate action and a desire to become a more resilient community. So some of the areas that we focus on as an office include hazard mitigation, disaster recovery, as well as climate adaptation, food security, energy, transportation, water, and waste. So next slide, please. So as an office, while we may be young, we have been fairly prolific in the planning projects that we've done so far. And one of those key projects that we're going to dive a little bit more into today is the OLA Resilience Strategy. So this plan was adopted in 2019, and it provides 44 actions centered within 4 key pillars of resilience for our community. And one of those is Action 15. We also have the Climate Action Plan, the One Climate One Oahu. It provides 47 actions for the city agencies to take to help reduce our climate emissions. And we annually produce a sustainability report. This is about all of the city's goals and metrics in becoming more sustainable as a community. This year we actually went virtual, and I can provide the link later, but we have a dashboard online where you can see how the city's tracking progress. And then late this summer, we're hoping to release our climate action strategy, One Climate Ready Oahu. So we're very excited about that, and keep your eyes peeled for it. Next slide, please. So with this idea of resilience hubs, I think it would be pertinent to kind of ground ourselves all in this definition of resilience. So this definition comes from the OLA resilience strategy, and it's where there's the capacity of individuals, communities, institutions, businesses, and systems to survive, adapt, and thrive, no matter the kind of chronic stress and acute shocks they experience. And this is where we're really rooting in with this Action 15 project. So next slide, please. So this here is just to share a little bit more about from the OLA resilience plan. This was a massive community engagement effort, and from over 2,000 respondents, we asked communities to really rank, where do you think Oahu falls on this resilience scale of 1 to 10? We came in at a 3.9, which just meant that there's a lot of opportunities for us to grow and improve, and Action 15 was sort of birthed out of this. So next slide, please. So these are the 4 key pillars that I was talking about before that sort of ground that OLA resilience strategy. And we oftentimes, especially in this line of work, we focus really on pillar 2, this bouncing forward with this natural hazard emphasis. But we have 3 other really key pillars because resiliency goes just beyond this natural hazard and response. So remaining rooted is really this kind of focus on ensuring that our community has an affordable future here. You know, we have a really strong out-migration from the islands, and we want to make sure it's a place people can live and stay. Another is this climate security. So that's adapting to the impacts of climate change all around us, as well as reducing our greenhouse emissions. And then this community cohesion, which I really love, and I think it is also kind of at the heart of our Resilience Hub project, is we need these tight-knit communities to know and work together to really be a resilient island moving forward. So next slide, please. So that brings us now to Action 15. This is intended to develop a community-wide network of resilience hubs across the island. It falls within this pillar 2, bouncing forward. It's goal 2, effective disaster response. And the goal is to really kind of take this momentum community-wide and try to implement this here to serve our communities year-round and also after disaster events. So next slide, please. So this is our intended, but I think now, having been in the project, we'll go a little bit farther beyond this. But originally the idea was to have at least 1 hub site in each of our 8 regional planning areas. The project kicked off in early 2022 with this initial community-wide survey to really get feedback from residents on what they wanted with resilience hubs and where they thought maybe potential locations might be. Right now we're in phase 2, which is we're workshopping in all these different planning regions. And I think at this point, it might be a great time for me to pass it over to Miku to tell you more about that. Oh, just kidding. This is actually where I'm going to tell you more about how we're defining hubs for this project. So I think that's really important. There is a lot of different ideas about what and how hubs can serve, and this may change as this moves forward. But for now, we're really focusing on these community-led and operated physical spaces, usually an existing building, that support community resilience, both in emergency and in non-emergency situations. Primarily, we're hoping these will be community members and organizations leading this, but support through local government, private businesses, state government, nonprofits, universities, just this whole community approach. And in this project, they're not serving as emergency shelters. They're meant to be supplemental to that system with the understanding that maybe they can serve similar needs depending on the disaster type. So next slide, please. So how do they meet these needs? That's, you know, they can vary. It just depends on the hub itself. And that's something that we're really excited to kind of dive into with these workshops and really hear from the community what their needs are. And the big thing is that they're really serving as a trusted gathering space during normal and disaster times for these community members to really build that community resilience. And I think now is when I'd like to pass it to Miku.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. And yeah, I'm just really happy to be here to share this project with you all. She's left me lots of time, which is great. I told Ku I could speak about this forever, but I'll try to keep it snappy. So just real quick, just to give you the big picture of the project has been taking place in several phases. And the first phase was really so strongly connected to Suan Shen and her amazing team and Department of Urban and Regional Planning. You saw the slides listed at the the top, but Kumu has been a big part of that effort, and they distributed the island-wide survey as well as developed all of the location suitability maps. And so I just kind of want to put a shout out and make sure that they're getting all that credit there. And the team presenting today, myself and along their students, and I see Bob Franco is in the house as well. We represent the kind of phase 2 community engagement piece. So let's take a look at the project objectives. And so kind of the overall project objectives were the identification of different recommended locations to serve as resilience hubs, to look at different suitability criteria, and I'll actually show you some of these hazard maps. This is an example of one of the ones produced by the DERP team, but we wanted to take that to the community and get feedback from them, and also evaluate critical services for each of these hub operations. And then the last piece, of course, is to get recommendations and next steps, needs and priorities for all the different hubs that have been identified as part of this process. Now, this is all very interesting and exciting, but I'm not going to focus on it today. I'm going to focus actually a little bit more on the process. And I really think that this is one of the things I feel so proud about for this project, how it has unfolded. And that's why the title of this talk was talking about community-based and the active learning components to it. And a big shout out for Sarah Harris and the City and County Honolulu for being so willing to work with us as we've taken this approach. So the process goals, so anytime we're doing work with the community, we have process related goals, at least I hope so, in addition to our outcome related goals. And for us, the goal, of course, was to have an equitable and inclusive process, focusing on empowerment for local residents around community resilience and disaster preparedness, providing education and support. A lot of that was with the mapping. We'll talk about that. Empowering our students, supporting them and cultivating their leadership skills, STEM, but especially social science skills, generation of social capital and a sense of community. And then this last one, number 6, has really come to the forefront, which is supporting intergenerational learning and exchange. And that's been so important for the community in embracing this project. So let's talk about the engagement process. We actually kind of started, so I said the island-wide survey in some ways was the official start, but there's a lot of pre-engagement that happened with Kuhn Tron's master's thesis and all of these meetings that we had already started having through the neighborhood boards. And yeah, Bob's giving some shout out for Kuhn. So he really kind of set the stage for us in developing these rich partnerships in collaboration with our community members. Then we had the island-wide survey, right? And then many neighborhood board meetings later, we then began hosting the workshops. And the first one, I really set aside some time to focus on vulnerable and at-risk neighbors. And I'll talk about how we can identify those in the next slide. From there, then we moved into the workshops focused on specific planning region. And we're in this phase now of starting to share back the results, share back the map, share back the resources. And then when we going back to the neighborhood boards, doing more presentations, and then eventually wrapping this up into a report for the Office of Climate Change Sustainability Resilience to include in their hazard mitigation use plan. So that's the kind of engagement timeline. The methods for how we actually recruited. So how did you actually invite, or how do we invite people? How do we reach out? Really, we did have this existing kind of network and in the Venn diagram there, level C and B, but actually it was through the neighborhood boards and sort of our partners we already had. That was really the primary way that we recruited and identified different locations even to host workshops, who should be invited. It was all through these partners. And then it was through them, through kind of a snowball approach that they then referred people kind of these other circles. That's kind of how we found people to invite. And this has been a huge part of the process is who do you talk to? Who are the main points of contact? And I think that we've been very successful in this and it's continuing to grow as we go along here. So the way that we identified different vulnerable or at-risk neighbors for those initial workshops that we held, we followed this map or this kind of list provided by the CBC. So looking at socioeconomic status, looking at Kapuna and older age adults, different concerns for language groups and housing transportation. So that's kind of the main way that we identified it. And I can show you some pictures, talk more about that in a moment. So this is kind of what we've accomplished so far. We keep adding stars to the map. And so as Sarah kind of mentioned in the beginning, it's like an ever evolving thing. So I counted it out. I think we're going to have 16 official regional workshops and focus groups. Many of them were held in person, a few of them online. Over 800 different neighbors contacted directly. When I did the math, though, if you look at all the neighborhood board meetings and things, we've had like over 100, pushing towards like 120, 130 different community engagements. We went to 20 neighborhood board meetings last month. How do you plan something for the primary urban center when you have 17 neighborhood boards? It's a big undertaking and is only possible because we have this incredible team of resilience core leaders. So, and that's where the active learning piece comes in. So that's a little bit about what we've done in terms of engagement and how we're doing the outreach. But let's talk a little bit about what we do at the workshops themselves. So the way they're set up, they're designed to be a presentation to start with. They're about an hour and a half. There's always got to be food. We work with a local partner to identify the site, the location itself. And again, they're the ones that are helping really build the invitation list. And then we kind of build around that because it is open to everybody. But you have really people set up at small tables, and our resilience core leaders are facilitating these discussions. They have ranking exercises where they're going through different services. For example, what is the capacity for this potential location to have microgrid solar, for example? And so they would rank that on a scale of 1 to 5 and talk about it. And as a table, they all have to decide. Tables are arranged based on neighborhood or sub-district, so everybody's familiar with a particular area. And then there's dot voting. So we ask them to put dots on a map to identify their top locations they would recommend. So I can answer questions more about it. I'm just kind of going to breeze through it. In terms of the education piece, we shared all these different kinds of maps, and as best we can, provided education on how to interpret them. These are the zoomed out Oahu maps, but each region, we had very specific region level maps, and amazing help from Kim Zong and Ding Liu on making these maps for us so that we can bring them to the community. And these are products that are now available for the community members to plan. So that's some of what we actually did at the workshops. And then another piece of it, other than kind of ranking the critical needs and services and identifying the different locations, was talking about the next steps, priorities, and needs for each of the areas. So it was incredible. Lots of group photos, lots of food, lots of discussion, and lots of interaction and exchange between neighbors being neighbors, and then also our students. So this is really how we were bringing that intergenerational piece. And so, yeah, just kind of showcasing all the different groups that we met. The blue t-shirts are a lot of our folks. We also have been building partnerships. The Hawaii State Energy Office, their Wayfinders group has come to almost every single workshop. So building additional partnerships and collaboration that way has been amazing. And this is just a snapshot. I still have to update it with more because this is an ongoing process, but basically overall level of satisfaction in the workshop been extremely high, really good verbal feedback as well, and just a lot of encouragement overall. So we have some updates. So some kind of ripple effects that have come from these workshops that I wanted to share with you all. Let's see. Some of these are, we had a chance to go to Kaimuki Middle School and do a presentation. Christopher and I did the first one here. It was for over 200 students presenting on what a community resilience hub is. And this was by request of one of the STEM teachers there because she wanted to incorporate it into the curriculum. So this was a really awesome opportunity because it's also feeding back into the work we're doing with community members. Things that we're doing with children are also often a good way to frame for our older age adult and kakuna community members, which we've been told by the Kakuna Collective. So it's having rippling effects. And we talked to them about what does resilience mean, right? Just starting kind of more simple at home. But then from there, we were able to take it into conversations about what does climate resilience mean? And the students are following along, and we'll show you some examples of their work. We trying to bring in connection to nature and different traditional teachings. And let's see. Oh, here it is. We're not going to actually play that video. But we'll put a link into the chat for you on that one. Sharing different resources. Haima has a really excellent video series. And so sharing these with you so you can see how we're framing and how we're talking to community members on all different levels, all different ages and stages. They really like this. Don't get scared. Don't be scared. Be prepared. So that was kind of like the model that we use. And even just thinking about how to teach about resilience to them helped us think about how, again, we teach and talk about resilience with others. So we taught them it's not just a giant, building, it's actually a hub as a gathering place. It's a gathering of people, intention, and energy. It can be a small preparedness pod. It can be a large building, or it can be a COVID pop-up where they're distributing aid. So teaching this to the children kind of helped us come up with this little motto: big and small, we need them all, but it's feeding back into the work that we do. So I just had a few quick samples. They all designed hubs. And so these are some sketches of what they did. Some of them had more like lists. Some of them focused on single buildings. Some of them focused on the neighborhood level, starting to draw out different kind of schematics. And today I was just given this photos of actual 3D diagrams. So they're really getting into it. They're so excited about this work. There's so much energy. And I think that this is what we need for the next generation, but the next generation is also teaching us as well about how to think about it and how to think about it differently. And I would say one of my biggest things I learned from them is this spirit of being a voyager, and how being a voyager is a different way to think about resilience, or maybe the original way, right, to think about resilience. And so I was going to share this link into the chat about their Sprouts program. It's associated with planting 75 ulu trees and some other things. So please take a look at that video when you have a chance. I think it really helps capture the spirit that we're learning from the children about how we design a resilience. Another really awesome rippling effect from these workshops already is the development of a new mentoring program with the Kapuna Collective. And that is tentatively called Kapuna Climate Mentors. We're still working on it. But that has now had ripple effects to help launch a webinar series and start possibly a bigger mentoring called the GEM project, Generations Engaged Meaningfully, all about resilience. And so these are some things that have come as a direct result from the Action 15 project. And I'm really proud about everything that we've done. And our students especially, we'll jump to them here in just a moment. But I just wanted to share next steps, kind of where we're at now. We're sharing this information back. We'll have that first slide, the actual outcomes, that one you were all curious about. We'll be working on it in June so that we can have the report out in August. So you will eventually get that information. But then all of this information is also going directly back to our community members so that they can be empowered to make decisions about resilience and planning in their area. And we're just beginning. I have this whole long list. I'm not going to read it all out for you, but there's a lot in the works to continue the relationships that we built, different publication opportunities our students are getting that access to. We've been talking with the Kapuna Collective about citizen science things. So a lot of happening. A lot of good things are happening. And this here, just sort of putting this out as a teaser, a model that we might explore to create some kind of a network, and maybe more than a network. People are saying they like the word collaborative, but we're doing things together. That's something that we could do. And we actually have a 5-year NSF grant to support the creation of a communication plan for the building of this kind of network. And so that's something, just kind of putting it out there for you, but grounding it in place with the hubs. I think that's really a key. And that's what's going to make this different than other things that have been done. Okay, so enough on that. I want to make sure that we have lots of time for our resilience core leaders to present. So none of this would be possible, as I mentioned, without this incredible group of resilient core leaders. They are the next generation of leaders. They've had such, they've just done so much. They've blown me away, but they're also supporting our local community and working with different Kapuna and elders, seniors. You know, there's a lot of different older age adults, however people wish to be identified. It's been fantastic. So, and I also just want to say a little shout out there. You can see Kuhn was one of the graduate students working with this, and Kinzong, and you know, there's just been such an incredible group of students. So that's why I'm including this active learning component in their work, how it's coming to the curriculum with the middle school, maybe elementary school. There's so much richness here. Oh, and all of our RCLs, by the way, have received their community resilience certification through the NDBT remote delivery series. So thank you for that. And that's something we'll continue to do with our resilience programs. All right, so we're going to move now into our student portion of this presentation. And so first up, I'm going to invite Joshua Forrest to present his work, and I'm going to screen share for him. All of the students are just getting little snippets right now to share, but we're including a link in the chat so you can take more time with their posters and listen to the full recording from their student undergraduate research presentation. So with that, Josh, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right. Hey guys. Josh from Forrest, as Miku said, and I just graduated from KCC, student living in Haula, and I was given the task sort of looking at food security systems on the island. And so a big part of my research was compiling a list of different organizations students could go to volunteer or do some sort of service learning. But then that was also I was also using information we got from a key informant interview, from a couple of key informant interviews with the same person, and then these community engagement workshops Miku's been talking about, and just compiling all that information together to try to get a better understanding of how food, culture, and resilience come together in this island. Obviously, that's a big factor. Those of you that know about Native Hawaiian culture, it's very food centric, and a lot of the amazing shows of resilience on these islands have been centered around lo'i and loko'ia and stuff like that. So trying to tap into sort of those knowledge systems has been a big part of this research. Is that enough?
You
I
can
could
go for
go
one
on.
more minute. One more minute, Josh.
Okay. Yeah, so this is just sort of I guess trying to address the need for food security planning. Obviously, 90% of the food, 90+% of the food on this island is imported. So there's a lot of groups and organizations that are trying to move away from that for many different reasons, right? But one of the big reasons is for resilience sake. I mean, if the barges stop coming in for whatever reason, we still need to feed ourselves. And so, yeah, most of the groups and organizations we found were sort of tailored towards, like I said, Native Hawaiian agricultural knowledge. So whether that's like Hawaii management or just like, yeah, the fish ponds or the lo'i, there's a lot of cool groups here, and I was able to volunteer with some of them and sort of do some networking in that way. But this has a long ways to go. So whoever picks up the torch, I hope, will be able to, you know, reach out and do some further work with these organizations. Kind of excited to see where it goes. So.
All right, Josh, we'll let you off the hook there. Thank you so much for presenting and sharing. And again, you can see his full presentation, the link in the chat, as well as a link to his poster itself. So, all right, so next up we have Mr. Sean Priester, and I'm just gonna let you jump right into it, Sean, and away you go.
Thank you, Dr. Miku, and thank you, Josh, pardon that, in there, Josh. So my name is Sean Priester. I am a UH West Oahu student in philosophy and a former graduate of KCC and an RCL, Resilience Core Leader with CERENE. And as we conducted workshops and focus groups, and as we looked at the suitability and the availability and quality of critical services, the question came to mind about what is the effects of disaster on wastewater and waste management systems during these times at resilience hubs. And it was inspired by a documentary about Hurricane Katrina and the devastation that happened, that was happening in their impromptu facility of the Superdome and their convention center. That aftermath just really, because I was involved in CERENE in these workshops, just it made me wonder what would happen when we have a surge of the population coming to these trusted sites and needing services. How resilient are those? How resilient is the infrastructure in these facilities for taking care of the basic needs of the community, and that of waste and waste, particularly wastewater and waste management. And so we did. It kind of built up as a topic and a question, and we wanted to gauge community's perception of this as a how does it fit into the planning of resilience hubs. And it's starting to gain some traction. It's starting to become organic in the conversations. You can see on these little talk bubbles here, or I don't know what you call them, talk bubbles, but this is data. So when we have these workshops and focus groups, we listen to these conversations, we take the recordings, and I go back and hear these conversations, and they comment about resilience in particular, and some specific to the particular topic that I'm talking about with wastewater and waste management. And I can say that it's really, I was when I saw the slide about the outcomes of the process, I guess you would call it, I really do enjoy that part of the process. This community engagement there, or the interaction and inclusivity, as it was said, really makes for rich conversations, and quite frankly, we come up with great answers to our questions, like how can we make these resilience hubs better for the community, and how can they serve your community in particular? So it's been a pleasure to do these projects, to do these focus groups and workshops and work with the community. And and just I am becoming I think I'm becoming a better researcher. And so it's fun. So thank you guys for letting me listening to my presentation. Aloha.
All right, thank you so much, Sean. And again, you can take a look at the that CERF link for the full talk, and then the poster if you'd like to follow up. So, okay, so next up, we have Kaua presenting. And so I'll again just kind of hand it right to you. Go ahead, introduce yourself and tell us what you did.
Aloha, everyone. I am Giavonna Kalaiwa from Waimanalo, the east side of Oahu. Also a recent graduate of Kapilani Community College in IT. I am a Research Resilience Corp leader with CERENE. My project is about the impacts cultural community engagement sites can have on community resilient hubs. And its purpose is to find the importance for community engagement sites to be within proximity to the resilience hubs. Community engagement sites are filled with mana, or knowledge, purpose to learn, teach, perpetuate, and preserve Hawaiian traditions in their own way. Resilience hubs are trying to provide resources for communities during blue and gray skies. I would like to find the connection by having community-based conversations through the various resilient hubs workshops CERENE conducted throughout Oahu. Handouts were given to rank critical services from 1 to 5 of chosen resilience hub. The graphs are the results. Using a program called Otter AI and AI-assisted thematic analysis, I will identify themes like culture, gardens, resources, etc., to look for those connections. I also discovered a paper titled Our Own Liberty, Reflections on Hawaiian Epistemology by Manulani Aluli Meyer that everyone can read to think deeper about teaching and learning with Native Hawaiians. Some research and cultural significance include a quote from Ati Manulani's paper, Practice Culture, Experience Culture, Live Culture. These connections play important roles for future generations, resilience hubs, Hawaiian culture, and Hawaii. Future considerations include reshaping the way of teaching and learning with community members to grow with each other, being open-minded and respectful, community knowledge, and community sites. There's a picture on my poster. It's of a GIS map for the Ko'olau Poko region of Oahu. So the blue dots are future resilient hub locations, and the green dots are of several community engagement sites that I had the honor of going to. Includes Hokua Aina in Maunawili, He'ia Fish Pond in Kaneohe, Ulupo, Heao in Kailua, Moka Auea Island, and the nation of Hawaii in Waimanalo. Mahalo nui loa.
All right, thank you so much, Kaua. And Kaua's presentation, this is a newer one, so this is the first time she's shared this work. She also has an incredible work doing website design and is going to continue helping us bring actually more Native Hawaiian culture and design to the CERENE website. So really excited to have her working with us and sharing more of that work. So I'm not sure if we have a link to this one on your page, but you can go to her bio page and see a previous poster that she shared about this amazing website that she designed as well. So, all right, thanks, Kaua. And next we have Angela presenting for the first time live, I think. So, all right, Angela, go ahead and introduce yourself and we'll go right into it.
Hello. So just to begin, older age adults and, quote, kapuna aren't tech literate when disaster strikes, end quote. Quote, people don't take into account age-related mobility issues, end quote. These two perspectives are a sample from the data that I analyzed. These perspectives are about the kapuna and older age adult populations in Hawaii, show how often they are overlooked, especially when it comes to emergencies. My name is Angela, and I'm a Resilience Corp leader with CERENE, the Center for Resilient Neighborhoods. I previously graduated from KCC and UH Manoa with degrees in history and political science. However, I'm currently attending KCC on a new academic pathway. My academic poster is titled Reinforcing Resilience with Access Abilities. I conducted research to help identify needs, services, and access capabilities of kapuna and older age adults by analyzing a cross-section of conversation data derived from an Action 15 Waikiki workshop, social vulnerability maps, and the UH Center for Aging Story Maps. In doing that research, I realized that older age adults have a lot of insight about themselves and general issues that can really assist the planning for resilience hubs in times of crisis. So the workshop data included a lot of anecdotal information and specific experiences regarding what worked for them and what struggles they would face that younger or more able-bodied people might disregard. So engaging the kapuna in older age adults in Waikiki and listening to their concerns and advice will help build community, understanding, and awareness. Often, the needs of the socially vulnerable, especially the kapuna and older age adults, are often overlooked. When you think about what members in the population would struggle the most during a crisis, it might include those who have limits in mobility, those that might be technically challenged, or those that are financially limited. Kapuna and older age adults may fall into one or a combination of those struggles. So if you consider that 43% of older adults on Oahu struggle to make ends meet, you begin to realize that there is a lot of work to be done. This research includes not only issues, but insights from kapuna and older age adults. Because who better to engage the building of resilience hub planning and develop program interventions than those who know, understand, live, and often thrive through issues they may have faced. I hope the research I conducted can be shared with anyone wanting to develop resilience hubs in Hawaii, because the kapuna and older age adults should not be considered a liability, but a resource for future planning. The insight that they provided in the workshops developed a thoughtful discussions and answers for dealing with all the shocks and stressors that will impact their particular population. Thank you.
All right, here, Angela. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that actually sets us up perfectly for Shawna's presentation, which is sort of, in some ways, like an extension of this work with the Resilience Talk Stories, but I will let Shawna tell you all about it. So go ahead, Shawna, take it away.
Hello, I'm Shawna, and I'm a Resilience Core leader. I'm currently attending Kapiolani Community College. And so my project is Resilience Talk Stories with kapuna and older age adults. So I'm sitting down with different kapuna for talk story type interviews. Kapuna tell me their stories of resilience based on different open-ended questions I asked them, asking about like the hardships and struggles they went through, how they overcame them, their messages of hope, and what advice they would give the next generation. It's a community-based research project, and so far I've got 4 points of data. So I'm plotting down the data points on a website made using the ArcGIS map software. which is what the map graphic is hoping to show on my poster. With the explicit consent of the kapuna I've talked to, I placed down points for each person I've talked to in order to show the variety of locations and experience over the island. On the website, which is still being built, so it's still a work in progress, I have a few data points on the map and have quotes and nuggets of wisdom from the kapuna I've spoken so far displayed. You can check out the website I've made using the QR code or a link. So the main themes that came up with the kapuna I spoke to were loss of a loved one, the importance of community, belief and hope, and learning from those who have more experience than you. There were multiple stories tackling like the struggle of grief and recovering from it. And personally, what stood out the most to me was the quote that fear is not real, and fear is false experiences appearing real. It's an empowering message and it's stuck with me since I did a talk story with the kapuna who said it. My project's key importance is in providing stories of the past to people in the present and the future. Kapuna are inspiring the next generation through overcoming their struggles with resilience. As a member of the next generation being referred to in the project, I'd like to say that the wisdom seen through the talk stories I've been through have personally impacted me and were helpful to me in persevering through multiple incidents during the past semesters. Another central benefit of the project is giving back to kapuna, creating community support, and making an avenue for them to talk about their stories. In the future, I hope to get more and more data points for my project from more parts of the island and expand what I have on the website. With consent of the people I've talked to, I have permission from some people to add the real audio of them speaking onto the website. I also plan to expand the website's formatting and change up like the design a bit. And as a final message, I'd like to leave off with the words of a kapuna I've spoken to highlight what the project is like. So if you feel you hit the bottom, the only place there from that is up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shawna. Just so awesome, everyone. Thank you for presenting. And I feel like, especially the last two highlighted that intergenerational piece. And I think that I just kind of wanted to share this is something that's coming to light in the work we're doing is that resilience as a concept is opening the doors towards, you know, climate mitigation, adaptation, and sustainability in ways that were not accessible before, because everybody can relate to having a hardship, and especially having gone through the pandemic. And so it is creating all these different opportunities to engage people on all different levels, ages, and stages. So yeah, thank you so much for all of the presentations from our students. And just to wrap up, I have an invitation for last but not least, this is going to be an awesome workshop. We've actually we had to delay it, but now it's back and it's going to be better than ever. And we're working with some amazing partners out there at the Waianae Coast Comprehensive Health Center. And so it's open to everyone, but especially if you have interest, investment work in that region, please attend. Kaua is going to put the information into the chat, forward it to people that you know who are working in the area. We'll have like dinner refreshments provided by the culinary students actually at the local high school there. And it'll be a really good one to experience everything that we've just presented on today in its fullest. So I think with that is my last slide here to try to leave space for questions to ask Sarah or myself, or especially any of the students, anything that you'd like to hear about the project. And I'll leave this up for just maybe another moment, but I think Kaua's got it, putting it into the chat, and I will stop my share. All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Miku and Sarah and all the Resilience Corp leaders for your amazing presentations. It's a nice reminder of like all the work that we've done since we've started over the years, just to see how it's started and how it's like now currently to where it's going to be in the future. Thank you all so much. I will just jump ahead to the questions. The first question is directed at Sarah from Clara DeCirbo. How are you incorporating the Resilience Hub planning into the hazard mitigation plan?
So that's a great question. And before I jump in to answer that, I just want to say thank you again to our wonderful team with CERENE and UH-DERP. We really This project would not be what it is if it wasn't for all the people you see on the screen and many others that are not with us today. And I cannot say thank you enough for all of the long hours that you've put in and all the work you've done on this project. So thank you all. On that note, that's a great question. So initially our plan is to take the findings from these workshops and the surveys and all of the outreach and engagement and really see what and where these needs are, what and where these potential hub sites might be. We're not really designating hubs yet because clearly we're not at a point. This project is just kind of this first step on our Resilience Hub journey. But what we hope to do is find some other next steps, action items, implementable things that we can then translate into our hazard mitigation plan. It may not be what we initially thought, which would have been really great to be like, this is the hub, this is where it's going, this is what it needs. But I think that this is actually a much better path to take because it's really going to meet the needs of our community because it's coming from our community and they're telling us what they want. So we'll figure out what that is and where and how we can incorporate that into the hazard mitigation plan.
Thanks, Sarah. Our next question is from Bob Franco. Hi, Bob. Nice to see you again. Did the availability of broadband access on Oahu appear to be an issue anywhere?
Well, that's a good question, Bob. We haven't processed all of the data because I couldn't sit at every table. So that's a good question. I know that it came up because some of our students were attending the HECO workshops. So then there was a little bit of crossover between participation there with our students and even some of the attendees because we had some similar invitation lists. So we can go, that's something that we can go through and actually search for in the transcript data. That'd be a way that we could highlight it. For any students here, since you guys were all at different tables and I wasn't at all of them, is that something that came up at your table that might be something that was spoken about, the access to broadband as a resilience, vulnerability, or strength?
It seems like a natural question. I mean, thank you, Bob, for bringing it up, but that's actually never come up at our tables, but I think it's a logical question to ask. But we've definitely the communications has come up in general, and with the solution of satellite radio and ham radio and what do you call it, the temporary cell towers, things like that. And what was the other thing that seemed to, redundant, sustainable energy and redundancy in that, and redundancy as well seems to be a concern. Just that energy resource in itself and redundancy on those properties. So, but not broadband.
Yeah, it might be a bigger issue on the neighbor islands, but I'm sure it is a factor in the Ko'olau area and other places on Oahu. And the hubs might be a place where we could, integrate strong broadband access.
Our next question is from John Shear. Have you looked at portable resources for community resilience versus a fixed site? And the example he provided is a charging trailer.
Yes, and by have we looked at it, it has emerged, right? So we're kind of listening to what people are speaking about and what their needs are and their suggestions, and definitely in the Kolauloa area specifically, that one came up a number of times. So not a trailer, but they were speaking about, pods or some kind of smaller thing that could be set up at the side of the road that would just be there, be available if different parts of the road access got cut off. So that was sort of the idea, that starting to shift the perception of Resilience Hub as like just only physical buildings, but more like a network of different support systems, and that those smaller units would be part of that network. So yeah, I think it definitely has come up.
I think it goes to Miku's slide too, just, they come in all different shapes and sizes. And I think this project has really sort of surfaced a lot of that and the desire from the community to have more options like that too.
And these trailers could be in access of Wi-Fi too, as well as other resources like medical could be combined. We have a question from Nancy McPherson. I think she asked this during Josh's presentation. How did Native Hawaiian stakeholders respond to the Talanoa methodology?
I'm not exactly sure how to answer that. I think generally that's something that's pretty accepted and I don't know, embraced by Native communities, because obviously oral histories and, you know, ways of disseminating information are traditional, you know, that's what has been done. So that is what's something that is respected, I think, a lot more than, you know, the typical Western mind, you know, would accept it. But in terms of in response to this project that I've done, I'm not really sure, you know, because I think I've had a good response everywhere I presented it, but I haven't presented it enough really, or talked to enough people besides for like quick Q&As to really gauge yeah, how people responded to those things.
Josh, can you explain just a little bit about what you meant by that when you had that on the poster, just for people's benefit?
Yeah, just Talanoa is just like I guess just a less structured interview. So it's still an interview in a sense. It's us talking with in this case, a key informant, right? Someone who is an expert on the subject matter. But then it's a lot less structured because it's not, you know, there's not a set of questions. It's a relaxed conversation, if you will. So if you look at, like, if you were to look at any of the, I'm blanking on the word right now, but the the recordings, if you were to go over the recordings of our conversations, they were much more relaxed. You know, it sounded like a group of friends talking more than anything. And I feel like that is very typical of, yeah, just that Talanoa. You know, it's much more about the setting and, you know, having people come as they are, you know, and not try to put on any special hat, because we're all humans. At the end of the day, we're all trying to work towards this together. So.
And I think when we actually did, you know, workshops and things, we didn't like name or frame it specifically as that. We kind of just did it, right? And it was more of that open-ended, and I think it's been very successful. Yeah, but yeah, like Josh said, there's more people to talk to, but we have covered quite a bit of ground here so far. So yeah, and then the Noi Ao, Nancy, that was that question that you had in the chat, and just stepping into that since you're here. That was one, I have to look up the number, but Christopher and I were looking it up. That it was, we had in mind this, the Ali not being bent over, right? That one, because that particular tree, and this is shrub, I guess. This is a slide that we brought to Kaimuki Middle School as an example of resilience in nature, but that also just trying to bring in just kind of more Hawaiian teachings about this too. And I've actually been taught this in different places with different community members I had been with, and then we brought it to the students. So, but it was the one about not being bent over by the wind specifically, because that particular little plant was extremely hardy and extremely resilient. Yeah.
Thank you.
And we have a question from Camille. Can the CERENE team talk more about how the Resilience Hub sites were chosen? Miku briefly mentioned something about the CDC chart, but would love to hear more about how vulnerable communities were determined. Okay, so there's slightly two different questions. So how were the different sites identified? And we had identified over 129 recommended locations originally from the survey, an island-wide survey that went out. And so that survey went out to community members. And that was like the highest number of respondents were identified as like neighbors and residents. And so that came from them. And then we're updating those numbers with everything we've received from the workshop. So all of the different recommendations for locations have come from people that live in those areas and know those places.
But in terms of the vulnerable neighbors or at-risk neighbors workshops that we did, those were not place-focused specific. They were more talking about what are the specific needs of different community members that might be considered more at risk or disproportionately impacted during a natural disaster. And so we developed a list of, I guess, different community members or neighbors that might be impacted more. And that was from the CDC Social Vulnerability Index that they put out. And so they basically just kind of have a list of different groups. And then we organize, the way the workshops were set up is we had tables focused on different topics. We wanted people to feel comfortable and not feel like kind of put on the spot to identify as any kind of thing. So we actually, instead of making the invitations about identifying people who are part of those groups, we invited people who were invested in those groups. So it could have been them, or it could have been their grandma, or it could have been a group that they're working with. So we had tables set up by topic, and then that's how we had the conversations out. And I can probably share the link to that SBI data source that we pulled that graphic from as well.
Thanks, Miku. We will nearing the end of time, and I would like to thank Miku and Sarah and also the Resilient Corp leaders once again for taking the time to present on this important topic for Hawaii and Oahu for climate change resilience. I'll pass it on to Karen to close us out. Thank you.
Great minds think alike, because I had something similar to say. So on behalf of everyone here at NDPTC, we would like to thank you for joining us today for Third Thursday. Mahalo to the City and County Office of Climate Change, Sustainability and Resiliency, the Center for Resilient Neighborhoods, and the team at CERENE. To our viewers, we hope you found the information helpful and will be able to keep abreast of the efforts of the Resilience Hubs. Special thanks goes out to Kung Tran for coordinating this important monthly training. Great job, Kung. And as I mentioned earlier, this training has been recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. And if you'd like to be a guest or presenter or know of an individual or organization that would like to be seen on Third Thursday, please contact us at ndptc.hawaii.edu. Again, thank you so much for watching Third Thursday. Mahalo. Aloha.
Mahalo. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Good job.
Mahalo. Fafatai. Tofa Sefua.